Heart of the World by H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 18. The Plot. Springing forward, but too late to save him, the señor and I lifted Zibalbay from the ground and laid him on a couch. Peeping over our shoulders, Maya caught sight of his ghastly face and the foam upon his lips. "Oh, he is dead," she moaned. "My father is dead, and he died cursing me." "No," said the señor, "he is not dead, for his heart stirs. Bring water, Maya." She obeyed, and for hard upon 2 hours we struggled to restore his sense, but in vain. Life lingered indeed, but we could not stir him from his stupor. At length, as we were resting, wearied with our fruitless labour, the gates opened and Tikal came again. "What now?" he asked, seeing the form of Zibalbay stretched upon the couch. "Does the old man sleep?" "Yes, he sleeps," answered the señor, "and I think that he will wake no more. The words he spoke to you today are coming true, and that which you took from him by force will soon be yours by right." "No," answered Tikal, "by right it will be the Lady Maya's yonder, though by force it may remain mine, unless indeed she gives it to me of her own free will. But say, how did this come about?" Now I broke in hastily, fearing lest the señor should tell too much, and thus bring some swift and awful fate upon himself. "He was worn out with the fatigue of our journey and the excitement of yesterday. After you had left, he began to talk of your proposals, and suddenly was taken with this fit. These matters are not for me to speak of, who am but a prisoner in a strange land. Still, lord, it will not look well if he who once was /cacique/ of this city dies here and unattended, for then people may say that you have murdered him. Have you no doctors who can be summoned to minister to him? For without drugs, or even a bleeding knife, we have done all we can do." "Murdered him?" "That they will say in any case. Yes, there are doctors here, and the best and the greatest of them is Mattai, my father-in-law. I will send him. But, Maya, before I go, have you no word for me?" Maya, who was seated by the table, her face buried in her hands, looked up and said, "Is your heart stone that you can trouble me in such an hour? When my father is recovered or dead, I will answer you, and not before." "So be it, lady," he said. "Till then I will wait. Now I must get hence, for there may be trouble in the city when this news is known." A while passed, and Mattai appeared before us, followed by one who carried his scales and medicines. Without speaking, he came to where Zibalbay lay, and examined him by the light of a lamp. Then he poured medicine down his throat, and waited as though he expected to see him rise, but he neither rose nor stirred. "A bad case," he said. "I fear that he will awake no more. How came he thus?" "Do you wish to know?" asked Maya, speaking for the first time. "Then bid your attendants stand back, and I will tell you. My father yonder was smitten down while he cursed me in his rage." "And why did he curse you, lady?" "For this reason. While we wandered in the wilderness, Tikal, my cousin and my betrothed, took a wife, your daughter Nahua, who was crowned with him as Lady of the Heart. But it seems, Mattai, that though he gave your daughter place and power, he gave her no love, for today this son-in-law of yours came to my father, and in the presence of all offered to set him in his lawful place again, and to suffer him to carry out his schemes, whatever they might be, if I would but consent to become his wife." "To become his wife?" said Mattai in amazement. "How could you become his wife when he is married? Can there be two ladies of the heart?" "No," answered Maya quietly, "but the proposal of Tikal, my cousin, is that he should either put away or kill your daughter, and you with her, Mattai, in order that he may set me in her place." Now when Mattai heard this, his quick eyes flashed, and his very beard seemed to bristle with rage. "He proposed that? He dared to propose that?" he gasped. "Oh, let him have a care. I set him up, and perchance I can pull him down again. Continue, lady." "He proposed it, and my father agreed to the offer, for, knowing that you have plotted against him, he had little care for the honour and safety of you or your house, Mattai. But if my father accepted, I refuse, seeing that it is not my wish to have more to do with Tikal. Then my father cursed me, and while he cursed was stricken down." "You say that it is not your wish to marry Tikal, lady? Is it then your wish to marry any other man?" "Yes," she answered, letting her eyes fall. "I love this white lord here, whom you name Son of the Sea, and I would become his wife. I would become his wife," she went on after a pause, "but Mattai, Tikal is very strong, and it may be, unless I can find help elsewhere, that in order to save the life of the man I love, of his friend and mine, Ignacio, and my own, I shall be forced into the arms of Tikal. But now Tikal has asked me for my answer, and I have told him that I will give it when my father is recovered or dead. Perhaps it will be for you to say what that answer shall be, for alone and in prison I am not strong enough to stand against Tikal. Say now, do the people love me well enough to depose Tikal and set me in my father's place should he die?" "I cannot say, lady," he answered shortly, "but at the least you will scarcely ask me thus to bring about my own and my daughter's ruin. I will be open with you. I gained over the Council of the Heart to Tikal's cause, and my price was that he should marry my daughter, thereby satisfying her love and my ambition. Yes, I have plotted to set Nahua on high, both for her sake and for my own, seeing that after the /cacique I sought to be the chief man in the city. Can I then turn round and depose him, and my daughter and myself with him? And if I did, what would be my fate at your hands in the days to come? No, I seek to be revenged on Tikal indeed, who has offered so deadly an affront to me and mine, but it must be in some other way than this. Tell me now, lady, what is it that you desire most? To be the /cacique of this city by your right of birth, or to marry the man you love?" "I desire to marry the man I love," she answered, "and to escape from this place with him back to those lands where white men live. I desire also that my friend and my lord's friend, Ignacio, should be given as much gold as he needs to enable him to carry out his purposes in the coast country yonder. If things can be brought about thus, Tikal and Nahua and their descendants, for aught I care, may rule the City of the Heart till the world's end." "You ask little enough, lady," said Mattai, "and it shall go hard if I cannot get it for you. Now I will leave you, for I must have time to think. But if Tikal returns, say him neither yea nor nay till we have spoken again. And as for you strangers, remember that your lives depend upon your caution. Farewell." 2 more days passed, or so we reckon by the number of meals that were brought to us, but neither Tikal nor Mattai returned to visit us. Other doctors came indeed, and saw Zibalbay, who lay upon his bed like one plunged in a deep sleep, but though they tried many remedies, they were of no avail. On the night of the second day we were gathered round his couch, watching him and talking together sadly enough, for the solitude, the darkness, and the fear of impending death had broken our spirits, so that even the señor ceased to be merry, and the presence of her beloved to give comfort to Maya. "Alas," she said, "it was an evil day when we met yonder in the land of Yucatan, and, friend, no gift could have been more unlucky than that of my love to you, for which, being worth so little, you are doomed to pay so dear. Fortune has gone hardly with you also, Ignatio, who are fated thus for the second time to see a woman wreck your hopes. Say now, friend," and she caught the señor by the hand, "would it not be best that we should make an end of all this folly, and that I should give myself to Tikal? Then I could bargain for you both that before I pass to him I should, with my own eyes, see you safe across the mountains, taking that with you which would make you rich for life. Nor need you trouble for me, or think that you left me to dishonour, for so soon as you were gone I should seek the arms of another lord whose name is Death, and there take my rest till in some day unborn you came to join me." "Cease to talk thus, Maya," said the señor, drawing her to his breast. "Whatever there is to bear we will undergo together, since even if I could be so base as to buy safety at such a price, without you my life would be worth nothing to me. Indeed, I had rather die at your side than live on alone. It is my fault that ever we came to this pass, seeing that if I had taken your counsel we should not have set foot within the City of the Heart. But curiosity conquered me, for I longed to see the place as now I long to see the last of it. Also, had we turned back, I must have left Ignatio to go on alone. Keep your courage, sweetheart, for though your father is dying and our danger is great, I am sure that we shall escape from these dungeons and be happy with each other beneath the sunlight." Then he kissed her upon the lips and comforted her, wiping away the tears that ran from her blue eyes. It was at this moment that I looked up and saw Mattai standing in the doorway, for we were gathered not in the hall but in Zibalbay's chamber, watching the scene curiously and with a softened face. "Greeting," he said, "and forgive me that I come so late, but my business is secret and such as is best done at night. How goes it with Zibalbay?" "He lives," I answered. "I can say no more, for he is senseless, and without doubt soon must die. Come, see for yourself." Mattai walked to the bed and examined the old man, lifting the eyelids and feeling his heart. "He cannot live long," he said. "Well, death is his best friend. Now to my business. There is trouble in the city, and strange rumours pass from mouth to mouth among the people, many of whom declare that Tikal has murdered Zibalbay, and demand that you, lady, should be brought before them to be named /cacique/ in his place. Things being so, it has been urged upon Tikal by the chiefs of his party that as, do what he will, he can never clear himself of the death of Zibalbay. It would be well that he should make away with you also, lady, and of course with these two strangers, your friends, seeing that then there will be none to dispute his rights. The matter was laid before him strongly at a secret council held this afternoon, and once he issued the order for your deaths, only to recall it because the messenger left the palace. At the last I saw that his heart overcame his reason, and he could not bear thus to divorce himself from you, lady, though what he said was that he would not stain his hands with the blood of one so innocent and fair. Still, I will not hide from you, lady, or from you, strangers, that your danger is very great, that you go indeed in jeopardy of your life from one hour to the next." Now he paused, and Maya asked in a low voice, "Have you no plan to save us, Mattai?" "Why should I have a plan, lady? Who with my house would benefit so greatly by your death?" "I do not know why you should have a plan, old man," broke in the señor, "but I tell you that you will do well to make one, else you do not leave this place alive." As he spoke, with a sudden movement, he sprang between Mattai and the door, and went on, "If we are to be murdered like birds in a cage, at least your neck shall be twisted first. Do you understand?" "I understand, Son of the Sea," answered Mattai, flinching a little before the señor's fierce face and hand outstretched as though to grip him. "But I would have you understand something also, namely, that if I do not return presently, there are some without who will come to seek me, and then they will find your carcass," broke in the señor, "and what with all your plots and schemes advantage you when you are a lump of senseless clay?" "Little indeed, I confess," he answered. "Still, my daughter, whom I love better than myself, will reap some profit, and with that, in this sad case, I must be content. But do not be so hasty, white man. I asked why I should have a plan. I did not say that I had none." "Then if you have one, let us hear it without more ado," said the señor. Mattai bowed, and as he answered, "Your will is mine, but I know not how my plan will please the Lady Maya yonder. Therefore, before I unfold it, I will make it clear to you that there is but one alternative: the death of all of you by tomorrow's light. Your lives lie in my hand, and if I must do so to save my daughter and myself, I shall not hesitate to take them." "Any more than I shall hesitate to take yours, man," said the señor grimly, "for remember always that if you do not make your plan such as we can accept, you will leave this chamber feet first with a broken neck." Again Mattai bowed and continued, "In one way only has Tikal been able to pacify the tumult among the people, by declaring that the Lady Maya shall be produced before the Council of the Heart in the sanctuary of the Nameless God upon the night of the Rising of Waters, being the first day when it is lawful for the Council to sit in the sanctuary, and afterwards at dawn in the eyes of the whole city. The words of Zibalbay have taken a strange hold of the people, although they cried him down as he spoke them. They desire to know what will happen when the prophecy is fulfilled, and once more the severed halves of the symbol of the heart are laid side by side in their place upon the altar. Zibalbay told them he believed that then the god would reveal his purpose, and show what part each of you should play in the fate that is to be. Therefore the people, ay, and many among the nobles, and even the Council of the Heart, look to see some sign, or wonder when day and night are come together, and that which was parted is made one. They begin to hold that the madness of Zibalbay is from heaven, and that the voice of heaven sent him on his journey." Now Mattai thought for a while and went on, "Lady, I am old, and for many years I have followed the worship of the gods, doing sacrifice to them, and importuning them with prayers, yet never have I known the gods to make answer to their votaries, or heard the voices of the immortals speaking into human ears. It seems that gods are many, thus perchance these strangers have their own. And, lady, thus it comes that in my age I ask myself if there are any gods other than those that the mind of man has shaped from nothingness, or fashioned in the likeness of his own passions. I cannot tell, but I think that were I in so sore a strait as you find yourselves tonight, I should not hesitate to give a voice to those dumb gods." "What is your meaning?" asked Maya. "This: when the severed halves of the heart are set in their place upon the altar, if there be any gods, they should give a sign. Thus, as I, who am the keeper of the sanctuary, know, the ancient symbol on the altar is hollow. If it were to chance to open, it might be that a writing would be found within it, an ancient writing of the gods, prepared against the present time, that shall be to us as a lantern to one wandering in the dark, or it might be that nothing would be found. Now, as it happens, in searching through the earliest records of the temple, I have discovered a certain writing, and it seems to me that your fortune would be great if this writing should lie within the symbol on the night of the rising waters. Here it is." From his robe he produced a small plate of dull gold, covered over with hieroglyphics. "Read it," said Maya. Then Mattai read: "This is the voice of the nameless God that his prophet heard in the year of the building of the sanctuary, engraved upon a tablet of gold, which he set in a secret place in the symbol of the sanctuary, to be declared in that far-off hour when the lost is found and the signs of the day and night are come together. To thee it speaks, unborn daughter of a chief to be, whose name is the name of a nation. When my people have grown old and their numbers are lessened, and their heart is faint, then, maiden, take to thyself a husband, a man of the race of the white god, a son of the sea foam, whom thou shalt lead hither across the desert. So my people shall once more prosper and grow strong, and the land shall be to thy child, and the child of the god, east and west, and north and south, further than my eagle's wing between sunrise and set." He finished reading, and there was silence as we looked on each other, amazed at the boldness and the cunning of this old priest and plotter. It was Maya who spoke first. "You have forged this writing, Mattai," she said coldly. "Now you desire that I should set it in the symbol, for you are mindful of that curse which was written in the ritual opening of the heart against him who shall profane its mysteries, or who shall dare to tell a lie within the sanctuary, or to swear falsely by the symbol. In short, if you do not fear the vengeance of the god, you fear the vengeance of the order." "To speak truth, lady, I fear both, for in offering insult to the nameless god, who knows what he offends? Still, you must make your choice, and swiftly, seeing that if you refuse the deed, by tomorrow you will have learned, or perhaps, remembering the words of the White Lord, I should say we shall have learned what virtue there is in the religions." Now she turned to us, saying: "Advise me, my friends, for I know not what to answer. In the faith of my people I have lost faith, and it is to yours that I look for comfort. Yet the deed seems awful, for if we are not worshippers of the nameless God, still we are all of us brethren of the ancient mysteries of the heart, and to do this thing would be to break our solemn oaths. Come, let us put it to the vote, and do you, who are the oldest and the wisest among us, vote first, Ignatio." "So be it," I answered. "For my part, I give my voice against the trick. Of the gods of your people I know nothing, and think less, but I am the master of our order in my own land, and I will not offend against it. To do this thing would be to act the greatest of lies, and a lie is a sin in the face of heaven. All men must die, but I wish to pass to doom with my hands unstained by fraud. Still, in this matter your lives are at stake as well as mine. Therefore, if of the three of us two are in favor of the act, I will be bound by their decision. But if only one is in favor, then he must be bound by ours. Good. Let it be so, said Maya. And now, beloved, speak and tell us whether you choose death and a clean conscience, or life and my love to gladden it. And she looked into his face with her beautiful eyes, and half stretched out her arms as though she would clasp him to her breast. Now, although the señor did not answer at once, when I saw this and heard her words, I, Ignacio, knew that it was finished, since it could not be in the heart of a man in love to resist her pleadings and her witcheries. Presently he spoke, and as he did so my face grew red with a half shame. I have no choice, he said. I do not fear to die if need be, but I should be no man were I to choose death, while it is your wish that I should live. Like Ignacio, I say that the gods of this city are to me nothing more than idols, and to deceive that which does not exist is impossible. For the rest, I became a brother of the heart, not by my own wish, but by accident. Therefore, on this point, my conscience pricks me little. Only to be a partner in this plot, I must speak or act a lie, and this I have never done before. Still, it seems to me that a man may choose life and his love in place of a cruel and secret death, and keep his hands clean, even though he must play a harmless trick as the price of them. Yet, Maya, in this, as in every other matter, I will do your wish, and if you think it better that we should die, why, let us die and make an end. Nay, she answered with a flash of reckless passion, I think it is better that we should live far from this unlucky city, and there be happy in each other's love. For your sake, my father's curse has fallen on me, and after it all other maledictions of gods or men will be light as feathers. If this be a sin that we are about to work, I do it for the sake of you and of our love, also because I would live a while in happiness before I go down to the grave. See my father lying there. Throughout a long life he has served his God, and behold how his God has served him in the hour of his trouble. Let his prayers answer for us both, for I will have none of such false gods, unless it be to use them for my ends. If this be a sin that we are about to do, and vengeance should tread upon the heels of sin, let it fall upon the heads of my people, who would murder me for no crime, upon the head of Mattai, who tempted me for his own advantage, and, if that be not enough, upon my head also. Little do I care for vengeance to come, if for only one short year I may call you husband." "Ill-omened words," muttered Mattai, shivering a little, "words that only a woman would utter. But so be it." As he spoke, I thought that I heard a faint groan break from the man upon the couch. I glanced anxiously at Zibalbay to find that I must have been mistaken, or at least that it had not proceeded from his lips, for he lay there rigid and senseless as a corpse. "The vote is taken," I said sadly. "What next, Mattai?" "Follow me," he answered, "and I will show you a secret path from this chamber to the sanctuary beneath. Nay, you need not fear to leave him, For if his life still burns within him, it is fast asleep. But stay, where is the talisman? That will be necessary to us." "I have one half," I answered. "The other is about Zibalbay's neck." "Find it," he said sternly to Lady Maya. "Nay, you must." End of chapter 18. H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 19. The Sacrilege. Now Maya bent over the form of her father and took the talisman from his neck. "I feel like one who robs the dead," she said. "Remember that it is to save the living, and be comforted," answered Mattai. "Come, let us be going, for the night draws on." "Take a lamp, each of you," he said presently, when we had reached the further end of the great hall, where he unlocked the copper gates with a key from the bunch that hung at his girdle. We passed through, and turning, he almost closed the gate, but not quite. "Why do you leave the gates ajar?" I asked. "Because there are none to follow us," he answered, "and who knows what may happen? Should we be forced to fly the sanctuary, open doors are easier to pass than those that are shut." "Who or what would force us to fly the sanctuary?" I asked. Mattai shrugged his shoulders and went on without answering. Now we passed down many stairs, along passages, and through secret doors, each of which Mattai left open behind us, till at length we came to a black wall of marble. On this wall Mattai felt with his thumb till he found a spot that, being pressed, slid back, revealing a keyhole into which he inserted a small silver key. Then again he pressed upon the marble, and a panel moved that might have been 2 feet wide by 6 in height, and we saw that light streamed through the opening. Beckoning to us, he walked through the gap in the wall, and one by one we followed him into the sanctuary of the Nameless God, and stood on the further side of the wall, huddled together and clasping each other's hands, for the place was awesome, and its utter silence and solemnity filled us with fear. The first thing that caught our eyes, as was natural, for it was built into the wall opposite to us, and through it streamed the light that filled the chamber, was the most wonderful and mystic effigy of the City of the Heart. The effigy was a colossal mask of singular and fearful beauty, fashioned from polished jade, and similar in design to those which are to be found in the ruins of Palenque and other deserted Indian cities, whereof no man knows the age. This huge green mask was placed above the narrow door that gave entrance to the sanctuary, and had been carved to represent the countenance of a being that, although its features were human, resembled neither man nor woman in its unearthly dignity and its stamp of cruel calm. The thick lips were carved with a contemptuous smile, and between them gleamed teeth made of white enamel, and nose was aquiline, with widespread nostrils that seemed to inhale the incense of worship, and the forehead, in whose centre appeared the impress of a woman's hand soaked in some scarlet dye, was broad, low, and retreating. Beneath the solemn and contracting brows were jewelled eyes. Through these eyes, and indeed from the entire surface of the mask, streamed light, making the face visible as though it were limned in phosphorus, for the jade was transparent as the thinnest alabaster, and behind it burned 2 great lamps that were named after the sun and moon. Such was the effigy of the Nameless Spirit that we now beheld for the first time, who had face but no form, the spirit, mouth of the heart, to whom every lesser god was subject, utterer of the thoughts of the heart of heaven, Lord of power, dweller in the darkness behind the sun, searcher of the secrets of death. Without pity was this God of theirs, and without wrath, who, clothed in eternal calm, so these people fabled, rested in a home of darkness, watching the shadow of events, celestial and terrestrial, in his mirror of the moon, and telling of them to the heart, which was his soul. The seal of the woman's blood-stained hand was set upon his brow, because woman is a symbol of life renewed. The hand is the sign of purpose, and the strength to do it, and by blood and anguish must every purpose be accomplished. But the Nameless One executed no purpose. That was the work of lesser gods. In the beginning, the heart thought, and the mouth blew with his breath, giving life to the earth, and causing it to roll forward among the spheres. And now the eyes watched, ever smiling, while it and those upon it work out our doom, till at length its primal force grows faint and fails, when, so said the priests, heart and mouth and eyes will think and speak and search, and at their command a new world shall arise from the corpse of the old, and a new life from the lives of those who dwelt thereon. Therefore it was, though now faith waned among them with their waning energies, that this people, knowing no better creed, worshipped the threefold Fate without a name, whom they held to be master of gods and men. Therefore also, long generations since, in this spot which we came to violate, to them the most holy on earth, they set up effigies of a heart, a mouth, and eyes as symbols of his attributes. The roof of the sanctuary, which was of no great size, was vault-shaped, in imitation of the arching sky, and in it appeared a golden sun, a silver crescent moon, and the stars of heaven. Its walls were lined throughout with polished blocks of the beautiful stone known as Mexican onyx, fretted over to the height of a man, with a border of hieroglyphics and effigies of the lesser gods in attitudes of adoration, all of them cast in gold and set flush with the face of the wall. The furniture was very simple, consisting only of stools cut from rich woods, heavily gilded and quaint designs, and a small table whereon lay sheets of paper made of bark, together with brushes of reed fibre and pots of pigment, such as were used in the picture writing of this people. Lastly, at that end by which we had entered the chamber, stood an altar of black marble, written around with letters shaped in gold, and upon this altar lay something covered with a silken cloth. For a minute or more we remained silent, contemplating these wonders. Then, with a gesture of impatience, Mattai spoke in a whisper, saying, "Let that be done which we have come to do, for now the sacrilege is committed, and it is too late for doubts." Speaking thus, he stepped to the altar and lifted the silken cloth that lay over the object which was upon it, revealing the image of a human heart fashioned in bloodstone and veined with arteries of gold. In the centre of this heart appeared a small and shallow hole that had been hollowed in its substance. "This is the tradition," said Mattai, still speaking in a whisper, "that when the two halves of a certain talisman are placed in this hollow, the symbol will open and reveal that which has been set within it since it was fashioned by Cucumatz thousands of years ago. And there is this in favour of the truth of the tale, that golden hinges appear upon the sides of the symbol. Now one half of the talisman has rested here for many generations. till Zibalbay took it with him, indeed when he went out to seek for the other half, and yet the symbol has never opened. Still, I am sure that it will open when the whole talisman is set in its place. In this matter, however, there is something more to fear than the vengeance of the gods, for, as I can read well, it is written in those letters that encircle the altar. An ancient tradition tells us that if the symbol be stirred from the place where it has lain for so many years, the floodgate will roll back and the waters of the lake will pour in upon the city, destroying it and its inhabitants. Yet the floodgate cannot roll back when it is not shut, nor can the waters flow in during the dry season, when they are not on a level with the walls," answered Maya. "They cannot, lady, and yet other things may happen. Why was the heart set thus? Was it not that in the utmost need of its worshippers they might choose death rather than defeat and slavery? And was this choice given to them in the wet months only? Be sure that if at this moment any despairing or impious hand tore yonder symbol from its altar, either the waters would rush up through the bed of the city, or subterranean fires would break loose and burn it. Still, though there is something, I think that we have little to fear, seeing that the writer says that in order to bring about so terrible a doom, the symbol must be torn from its altar with might. Now to our task. Stranger, give to the Lady Maya your half of the ancient talisman, that she may set it, together with the half she bears, in the place prepared in the symbol." With a sigh, seeing that it was too late to draw back, I undid the emerald from my neck and gave it to Maya, who laid it side by side with its counterpart upon the palm of her trembling hand, and stepped with it to the altar. Here she stood for a moment, then whispered in a faint voice: "Terror has taken hold of me, and I fear to do this thing, yet it must be done." "And not by me," said Mattai, "or we shall have come on a fool's errand and go back, some of us, to a fool's death." And he looked towards me. "I will not do it," I said, answering his look, "not because I fear your gods, but my own conscience I do fear." "Then I will," said the señor boldly, "for I fear neither. Give me that trinket, Maya." She obeyed, and presently he had caused the two halves of the talisman to fall into their ancient and appointed bed in the symbol. In the great silence I remember the sound they made as they tinkled against the stone struck my ears so sharply that I started. For some seconds, perhaps 20, we stood still, watching the altar with eager eyes, but the symbol never stirred. Then I said: "It seems, Mattai, that you must hide your writing elsewhere, since yonder heart will not open, or if it will, we have not found the key." "Wait a little," broke in the señor, "perhaps the springs are rusted," and before any of us could interfere to stop him, he placed his thumbs upon the halves of the emerald and pressed so hard that the symbol trembled on its marble stand. "Beware!" cried Mattai, and as the echoes of his voice died away, all of us started in astonishment, for lo! the heart was opening like a flower. Slowly it opened till the severed talisman fell from it, and the two halves lay back on the marble on the altar, revealing something hidden in its centre that shone like an ember in the lamplight. We crept forward and looked, then stood silent and half afraid, for in the hollow of the heart, laid upon a square plate of gold which was covered with picture writing, glared a red jewel shaped like a human eye that seemed to answer stare with stare. "If we stand like this we shall grow frightened," said the señor roughly, glancing round him as he spoke. "There is nothing to fear in a red stone cut out like an eye." "If you think so, white man," answered Mattai in a voice that shook a little, strive as he would to command it, "lift up the holy thing and give me the writing that is beneath it. Stay, first take this. Set it in the symbol, replacing the eye upon it," and he handed him a forged tablet. The señor obeyed, nor did any wonder come to pass when he lifted that dreadful-looking jewel and changed the true for the false. "Read it," said Maya, as the tablet was passed to Mattai. "You have knowledge of the ancient writings." "Perhaps it were best left unread," he said doubtfully. "Nay," she answered, "let us know the worst. Read it, I bid you." Then he read these strange words in a slow and solemn voice: "The eye that has slept and is awakened sees the heart and purpose of the wicked. I say that in the hour of the desolation of my city not all the waters of the holy lake shall wash away their sin." Now the faces of us who heard turned grey in the lamplight, for though the gods of this people were false, we felt that the voice of a true prophet spoke to us from the accusing tablet, and that we had called down upon our heads a vengeance which we could not measure. "Did I not tell you that it were wiser to leave the writing unread?" gasped Mattai, letting the tablet fall from his hand as though it were a snake. The clatter of it as it struck the marble floor seemed to wake us from our evil dream, for the señor turned to him and said fiercely: "What does it matter what the thing says, rogue, seeing that you forged it as you forged the other?" "Ah, would that I had," answered Mattai. "When doom overtakes you and all of us, then shall you learn whether I forged that ancient writing." He lifted it from the floor, and, hiding it in his robe, added: "Close the heart, white man, and give back the severed jewel to those who wear it." The señor obeyed, replacing the silken cloth over the symbol so that the altar seemed to be as it had been. "Now let us be going," said Mattai, "and rejoice that if yonder eye has seen our wickedness, at least it is hidden from the sight of man. Doubtless the vengeance of the gods is sure, but that of man is swift." As he spoke we turned to leave the sanctuary, and of a sudden Maya screamed and would have fallen had not the señor caught her. Well might she scream, for there in the narrow niche of the secret door by which we had entered, framed in it as a corpse is framed in its coffin, stood a white figure, which at first I took to be that of some avenging ghost, so ghost-like were the wrappings, the snowy beard and hair, and the thin, fierce face. Another instant, and I saw that indeed it was a ghost, the ghost of Zibalbay, or rather his body come back from the boundaries of death to spy upon our sacrilege before it crossed them for ever. Yes, it was Zibalbay, for while he had seemed to be unconscious upon the bed in the chamber, his senses were awake, and oh, what must he have suffered when he, the high priest of the nameless god, heard us plan our fraud upon his sanctuary. Then, after we had left him, fury and despair unfettered the limbs that had been bound so fast, and gave him strength to follow us, though they could not unlock his frozen tongue. He had followed. Painfully he had crept down the stairs, along the passages, and through the open door, for the path was known to him even in the dark, till at length he came to the secret entrance of the sanctuary. Here once more his force deserted him. Here, unable to speak or stir, he had leaned against the wall and seen and heard all that was done and said. Oh, never shall I forget the rage of his quivering face, or the agony and horror of his tormented eyes as they met our own. No curse could have been so awful as that look which he let fall upon his daughter. No outraged deity or demon could have seemed more terrible to the human sight than was the tall figure of this dying man, striving even in death to protect the honour of his gods, which we had violated in their most ancient Holy of Holies. Never have I seen such a dreadful sight, and I pray that never again may I do so, either in this world or the next. The dying Zibalbay saw our fear, and with a last effort he staggered forward toward his daughter, his clenched hands held above his head. For a moment he stood before her as she lay upon her lover's arm, staring up at him like a bird at a snake, while he swayed to and fro above her like a snake about to strike. Then, of a sudden, foam mingled with blood burst from his lips, and he sank down at her feet, dead, dying in a silence that was more awful than any sound. Of all that followed I need not write. Indeed, I cannot. So great was my horror at this scene, and so intense the strain which was put upon my vital force during these hours, that I have little memory of what chanced after Zibalbay's death, till I found myself lying exhausted upon the bed in my prison cell. Somehow we calmed and silenced Maya. Somehow we escaped from that hateful sanctuary, and by slow degrees brought her and the dead body of her father up the narrow stairs and passages to the hall above, where we laid the corpse upon its bed. Then Mattai left us, and I remember no more till the next morning, when nobles and leeches came to watch by the body of the dead /cacique and to embalm it in readiness for the tomb. The next 2 days went heavily for the three of us, oppressed as we were by the silent gloom of our prison and the memories of that dreadful night. The love between Maya and her father had never been deep, for they were out of tune with each other. Still, now that he was dead, she mourned him, the more perhaps because he had died hating and cursing her. By degrees she recovered from her superstitious fears, born of the writing and the symbol, but her father's maledictions she never could forget, and though she was willing to earn and to bear these for the sake of her love for the señor, I think that the memory lay between them like a shadow. "Oh, why did I ever love you?" she would say. "What have you to do with me, whom race and law and fate have set apart from me?" And yet she went on loving him even more dearly. I also was unhappy, for though I put little faith in these omens or in the vapourings of dead prophets and the tricks of living charlatans, I felt that ill luck which had clung to me in the past was with me still. Things had gone cross with me. Zibalbay was dead, and woman, the inevitable, had drawn away the heart of my friend, and dragged me and my plans into the whirlpool of her passions, whence, if at all, they must emerge ruined and shapeless. Still, summoning the patience of my race to my aid, I bore these secret troubles as I might, giving counsel and comfort to the lovers who, lost in their own doubts and difficulties, thought, as was natural, little of me and my ambitions. At length they carried away the corpse of Zibalbay to be wrapped in its winding sheet of gold and set with all ancient pomp and ceremony by those of its forefathers in the Hall of the Dead. Maya wept indeed, but I, for my part, was glad to see the last of him. So I think was the señor, whose spirits had begun to fail him in the presence of so much remorse and grief. That day, it was the day previous to the night of the rising of the waters, on which we were to appear before the Council of the Heart in the sanctuary. Tikal came to visit us. To Maya he bowed low, but on the señor and myself he looked with an angry eye, with the eye indeed of one who would have killed us if he dared. First, with many fine words and empty compliments, he offered her his sympathy upon the death of her father. For this she returned her thanks, quoting, however, with a flash of her old spirit, a certain proverb of her own people, of which the meaning is that the death of one man is the breath of another. "My father was your foe, Tikal," she added, "and now that he is gone you will be able to sleep and reign in peace." "Not altogether so, lady," he answered, "seeing that he has left behind him a more dangerous rival to my power, namely yourself. I will not hide from you, Maya, what you soon must learn, that a large portion of the people, and with them many of the nobles, accusing me of your father's murder, clamour that I should be deposed, and that you should be set in my place as /cacique/ of the City of the Heart. Some few days ago I might have stilled their outcry by commanding you to be put to death, but now it is too late, for since then time has fought for you, and doubtless your end would be followed by my own. When last we met, cousin, I asked you a certain question to which you promised me to answer when your father was dead or recovered, and today I have come to hear that answer. While Zibalbay lived, I had much to offer him and you in exchange for your hand, and I offered it freely. So high a value did I place upon it when it seemed lost to me that I was prepared to lay down my power, to suffer your father to violate the laws, and to incur the eternal hate and enmity of Mattai, his daughter, and his party. Now I must make you a lower bid, that of equal power for myself, and for your friends here, whatever they may desire. Should you refuse me, this is the alternative: civil war in the city till one of us is destroyed, and instant death as the portion of these strangers. But, Maya, I pray you not to refuse me, for I have something more to offer you, my undying love. From a child I have always loved you, Maya, although you have treated me coldly enough, and now day by day I love you more. Indeed, I believed that you and your father were dead yonder in the wilderness, for then I had faith in Mattai, whom now I know to be a rogue, and Mattai swore that it was written in the stars. Even so, I would not have wed another woman, for my heart bled at the loss of you, had not Mattai made this marriage the price of his support, without which I could not hope to be anointed /cacique, seeing that I have many jealous enemies. It was ambition that led me to consent, and bitterly have I regretted my folly ever since, for if she who is called my wife loves me, I hate her, and by this means or by that I will be rid of her. Forgive me, then, my sin against you, remembering only that I have loved and served you in the past, as I will love and serve you in the future, and that it was you who brought about these troubles, because, though I prayed you to stay and did all in my power to prevent you, you determined to accompany your father upon his mad journey into the wilderness. Now I have spoken, and I thank you for the courtesy with which you have listened to me." "You have spoken, cousin," she answered, "and your words have been gentle. Yet, if I understand you right, some few days since you were in doubt as to whether it would not be better to murder me here in this darksome hole where you have placed us." "If policy put any such thought into my mind, Maya, love drove it out again," he answered with confusion. "So you admit that this was so?" she said. "Well, a day may come when policy might breed the thought, and love grown weary prove not warm enough to wither it. Also, it seems that even now you threaten these, my companions, with death, should I refuse you your desire. If you should refuse me my desire, Maya, perhaps it will be for a secret reason of your own," and he scowled at the señor angrily, "a reason that the death of these men, or one of them, will remove." "Be sure of one thing, Tikal," she broke in sharply, "that such a wicked deed would put an end for ever to your hopes of making me your wife. Now listen. I have heard your words, and they have touched me somewhat, for I think that although you have broken your oath to my father, and your troth to me, at heart you are honest in your love. Still, I can give you no answer now, and for this reason, that the answer does not lie with me, but rather with the gods. Tomorrow night we appear before the High Court of the Council of the Heart, and you yourself shall set the severed portions of the talisman that have travelled so far to seek in the place prepared to receive it, in the symbol that is on the altar of the sanctuary. Then, as my dead father believed, and he was gifted with wisdom from above, the god shall declare his purpose in this way or in that, showing his servants why all these things have come about, and what they must do to fulfil his will. By that will, cousin, and not by my own, I shall be guided in this and in all other things." Tikal thought a while and answered, "If nothing follows this ceremony, and the oracles of the god are silent, then what?" "Then, Tikal," she said softly, "you may ask me again if I will become your wife, and perhaps, if the council suffers it, I shall not say nay. Now, farewell, for grief still shadows me, and I can talk no more." End of chapter 19. By H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 20. The Council of the Heart. When Tikal was gone, I sat silent, for although it might be necessary to save our lives and to bring about the fulfilment of Maya's love, all this double dealing did not please me, and I could not talk of it with a light heart. But the señor said, "I hope that yonder rogue Mattai may not have repented or been overbribed by Tikal and set some other prophecy in the hollow of the symbol. Then, Maya, you will be taken at your word, and things will be worse than ever they have been." "I pray not, and it is not likely," she answered, starting. Then, with a quick burst of passion, she added, "Why do you look at me with such reproach, Ignatio? No, do not answer, for I know. It is because you think me a cheat and a liar, and are saying in your heart, 'This is a woman's honour.' Thus would any woman act in the hour of temptation. Ignatio, with all your courtesy, you hate and despise us women, looking on us as lower than yourselves, as a snare to your strength and a pitfall for your feet. Well, if so, thus were we made, and can we quarrel with that which made us? Also, in some ways, we are greater than you, though you may not be pleased to call yourselves more honest. You would not have dared for your love what I have dared for mine. You would not have offered deadly outrage to the God of your people, to the instinct of your blood and the teachings of your youth. No, you would have sat still and wrung your hands and seen your lover perish before your face, and then have turned your eyes to the sky and said, "It cannot be helped, it is well. At least I am clean in the sight of heaven." So be it. I, Maya, am of a different nature. I have dared all these things, and I joy in them, even though you watch me ever with your melancholy eyes. Why should I not? Is not my love everything to me, and is it shameful that this should be so? I believe no more in the unknown God. Why then should I fear to offend him? I will not see my betrothed given up to death, and myself to worse than death. And how can I harm my people by taking a man nobler than themselves to be my husband? Cease then to reproach me by your silence, or rather learn to pity me, for my strait is sore, and doubtless vengeance dogs my heels. Let it fall, if it will, on me, but not on you, beloved, oh, not on you. And suddenly her anger left her, and she sank into the señor's arms to lie there weeping bitterly. I went to the further end of the hall and sat reading the ancient writings of this people which we had found in the chamber. Indeed, this was my daily occupation, for now I found that these lovers liked to be alone, unless it happened that there were plans to be thought out or counsel to be given. A shadow grew between me and the señor in those days, for though he said nothing of it, he also was angry because I did not approve of the dark plot to which we were parties, and Maya's outburst spoke his name with her own. Nor was this wonderful. Now, looking back, I do not blame her or him, or think that they did wrong. I believe what I really felt was not indignation at a trick which might well be pardoned, seeing how much hung to it, but superstitious fear lest some force, human or infernal, should visit that trick with vengeance. For, as we know, even the devils have power against us if we give it to them by fighting the world with our own weapons. On the following day, the attendants who set our meals brought with them clean robes for each of us, scented and wonderfully worked, and for Maya certain royal ornaments. In these we arrayed ourselves before evening and waited. The hours passed, and at length the copper gates were opened, and a band of nobles and guards presented themselves before us, saying that they were commanded to lead us to the sanctuary. We answered that nothing would please us better, who were heartily weary of living like rats in the dark, and in a few minutes we found ourselves walking up the stairs toward the crest of the pyramid. We reached it and saw the stars shining above us, and felt the breath of heaven blowing in our faces, and never has a sight of the stars or the taste of the night air seemed more sweet to me. Leaving the watch house, we walked to the great stair across the lonely summit of the pyramid, and began to descend its side. At the foot of the stairway we turned to the right, till we came to a double door of copper, beautifully worked, placed in the centre of the western face of the pyramid, and guarded by a small body of soldiers, who saluted and admitted us. Beyond the doors was a great hall, not unlike that which had served as our prison, lit with lamps, lined with polished marble, and having on either side of its length other doorways leading to the apartments that were used as sleeping places for the officers on duty. At the threshold of this hall we were met by priests, clothed in pure white, into whose custody we were given by the company of nobles and soldiers that had escorted us thus far. Surrounded by the priests, who chanted as they walked, we passed down the hall till we reached another and a smaller door. Beyond this lay a labyrinth of steeply sloping passages, running in every direction deep into the bowels of the rock beneath the pyramid. So intricate and numerous were these tunnels that even with the assistance of the lights which the priests carried, it would have been almost impossible for anyone not having their secret to find a path through them, or even to keep his face in a given direction for more than a few paces. Along these passageways our guides went without faltering, turning now to the right, now to the left, and now seeming to retrace their footsteps, till at length they halted to open a third door, covered over with plates of beaten gold, on the further side of which lay the most sacred spot save one in the City of the Heart. It was a chamber that served the threefold purpose of a judgment hall, a church wherein the nobles attended worship, and a burial place of the departed /caciques/ of the city. Here in this vast and awful vault, each of them set in his own niche and companioned by his consort, stood the bodies of every king priest who had reigned in the holy city, enclosed in coffins of solid gold, fashioned to the shape and likeness of the corpse within, and having the name, age, date of the death, and a brief account of the good or evil that the man had done, cut in symbols on his breast. There they stood eternally, men and women made in gold, and beneath their brows gleamed false eyes of emeralds. Numerous as were the niches in the chamber, each had its tenants, and in the last recess, that nearest to the entrance, stood a newcomer, for here in his gilded sheath was placed the corpse of Zibalbay, by the side of her who had been his wife and Maya's mother. For a moment Maya paused to look upon the bodies of her parents, then with a sigh and an obeisance she passed on, saying to me, "See, this hall of the dead is full. There is no place left for me or for my descendants, and surely this is an evil omen. Well," she added with a sigh, "what does it matter where they set us when we are dead? For my part, I had sooner sleep in the earth or beneath the waters than stand for ever cased in gold and glaring with jewelled eyes upon the darkness. Yes, if I might, I should choose the earth that bore me, for it would turn my flesh to flowers." Then we went on, defiling before the silent company of the golden dead, who seemed to watch us as we walked, till, passing round a judgment seat that was set near the end of the hall, we stood in front of a little door over which burned great lamps. This door was guarded by two priests with drawn swords, which they pointed toward us as a sign that we should halt. Then the priest who had escorted us so far fell back behind the judgment seat, and we were left alone. "Give the sign, keepers of the gate," said Maya. Thereupon one of the men with the drawn swords uttered a low and peculiar cry, like the wail of a child. When he had made this strange sound thrice, at intervals of about half a minute, it was answered from within by another and louder cry, pitched upon the same note. Then, of a sudden, the door was flung wide, and a stern-looking man with a shaven head came through it. "Who are you that seek entrance into the sanctuary?" he asked. "Are you gods or devils, men or women?" "We are 2 men and a woman," answered Maya, "priests and priestesses of the heart, and we come to take our trial before the council of the heart, as is our right." "Do you know the open signs of the heart, the signs of brotherhood and of unity and of love, that you dare to stand upon the threshold of the sanctuary, to cross which is death to the ignorant?" "We know them," answered Maya, and one by one we gave those signs. "Do you know the secret signs of the heart, that you dare to cross this threshold?" he asked again. "Otherwise, get you back and take your trial in the common judgment hall." "I know them," answered Maya, "and I vouch for these men who accompany me. Suffer me then to enter, and these with me, for I am here by ancient right, and I have knowledge both of the outward signs and the inner mysteries." Now the man withdrew, and the door was closed behind him. Presently he appeared again and said, "I have reported to the council, and it is the will of the council that you should enter." "Follow me," said Maya to us, "and when you are spoken to, make no answer till I have vouched for you. I will answer for you." The priests let their swords fall, and passing through the doors, for there were 2 of them connected by a short passage, once more we found ourselves standing beneath the mask of the unknown god in the sanctuary of the City of the Heart. But now it was no longer empty. Behind the little altar were 3 stools, and upon them, clad in wonderful apparel and adorned with gold and gems, sat Tikal, Mattai, and Nahua, who was the only woman present. In front of the altar was an open space, and beyond its circle, each wearing the orders of his spiritual rank, sat the Brethren of the Heart, according to their degree, to the number of 36. Led by Maya, we advanced into the space before the altar, and stood there in silence. None of those present took note of us. Indeed, they did not seem to see us, but sat with bent heads and with hands folded crosswise on their breasts. At length one of the brethren, he who was nearest to the door and had questioned us without, rose, and addressing Tikal, said, "Keeper of the Heart, one who claims to be of our company stands before you, and with her 2 of whom she vouches, who, although they be strangers by your command, I have proved to be Brethren of the Heart, though what more they may be I know not. Be pleased, then, to prove them also by the voice of their sponsor, that their mouths may be opened and their prayer come to the ears of the council." At his words 2 of the brethren rose and blindfolded the señor and myself, lest we should see the sacred signs, with all of which indeed I was well acquainted, but Maya they did not blindfold. Then we heard Tikal asking, "How are you named, who are strange to our eyes?" We made no reply, for a voice in our ears cautioned us to be silent. "We are named the Son of the Sea and Ignatio the Wanderer," answered the voice of Maya. "Son of the Sea and Ignatio the Wanderer, why come you here?" asked Tikal. "Through the gate on which is written, 'Death to the stranger and the uninstructed.'" "Because we have a prayer to utter, an offering to make, and because, although we dwell in a far land, we are the servants of the Heart," answered Maya. "How come ye here?" The heart led, the mouth whispered, and we followed the light of the eyes. Show me the sign of the light of the eyes, or die to this world." Now there was silence, and though we could not see it, Maya showed the sign on our behalf. "Show me the second sign, the sign of the mouth, or be cursed by the mouth, and die to this world and the next." Again there was silence. "Show me the sign of the heart, the third and greatest sign, lest the heart think of you, and you die to this world, to the next world, and all the worlds that are to be, lest ye be cast out between the light and darkness, and lost in the gulf of fire that joins heaven to hell." Now we heard a sound of rustling, as though all the company had risen and were prostrating themselves, and presently the bandages were lifted from our eyes. "Strangers," said Tikal, "your mouths are opened in the sanctuary according to the ancient form, and it is lawful for the council to listen to your prayer. Speak, then, without fear." Then I spoke, saying, "Brethren, for so I will dare to call you, seeing that I also, though a stranger, am of the brotherhood of the heart, as I can prove to you if need be, I, in higher rank than any present here, unless it be you, O keeper of the heart. On my own behalf, on behalf of my brother, who also is of our company, and on behalf of Maya, Lady of the Heart, daughter of him who ruled you, and heiress to his power, I speak and make my prayer to you. It would seem that we three, together with Zibalbay, who is dead, and therefore beyond the execution of your judgment, have violated the laws of this city, we by daring to enter its gates, and Zibalbay and the Lady Maya by leading us to those gates. For this crime we should have been put to death 8 days ago upon the pyramid, had not the Lady Maya here claimed a right to have our cause laid before this high tribunal. In her case, and in that of her father, this was conceded, and I pray now that the same clemency may be extended to me and to my brother." "Upon what grounds do you claim this, stranger?" asked Tikal. "Upon the ground that we are brethren to the inmost circle of the heart, and therefore have committed no crime in visiting this city, which is free to us by right of our rank and office." Now there was a murmur of "True" from the council behind me, and Tikal also said "True," but added, "If you are brethren of the inmost circle of the heart, you are free from offence. But first you must prove that this is so, which as yet you have not done. A brother of the inmost circle knows its mysteries, and can answer the secret questions. Come, let us put you to the test, but first let the white man be removed from the sanctuary, for in this matter each must vouch for himself." Accordingly the señor was led away, and the doors having been closed and the lamps shaded, the oldest and most instructed of the councillors stood forward and put me to the test with many questions, all of which I answered readily. Then they commanded me to stand before the altar, and, as keeper of the heart, to open the heart in the highest degree. This I did also, though afterwards they told me that my ritual differed in some particulars from their own. After that I took up my parable and questioned them, till at length none there could answer me, no, not even the high priest or Mattai. Indeed, they confessed humbly that I was more instructed than any one of them, and because of this knowledge, from that day forward I was held in veneration in the City of the Heart. Now I was given a seat among the brethren, the highest after those of the chief priest and the great officers, and the señor was summoned. He entered with a downcast look, and while Maya and I watched him sadly, his examination began. It was not long. At the second question he became confused and used angry language in Spanish and English and broke down. "Brethren," said Tikal, and there was joy in his eye as he spoke, "it seems to me that we need not trouble further with the impostor. By daring to enter our city he has earned the penalty of death. Moreover, he has blackened his crime by claiming to be of our brotherhood, whereas he scarcely knows the simplest password. It is your will that he should be taken to this fate? If so, speak the word of doom." Now Maya arose, affrighted, but motioning to her to be silent, I spoke, saying, "Hear me before the fatal word is spoken which cannot be recalled. This man is of our inmost brotherhood, though he has not been formally admitted to the inner circles, and has forgotten those of the mysteries which were taught to him at his initiation. Listen, and I will tell you how he came to join the Order of the Heart." Then I told them the tale of my rescue by the señor, told them also of the story of our meeting with Zibalbay, and of our journey to the City of the Heart, speaking to them for an hour or more while they hearkened earnestly. When I had done, they debated as to the fate of the señor, and, though by only one vote, decided that if I had nothing more to urge on his behalf, he must straightway die. "I have something more to urge before you pass judgment," I said in my need and despair, speaking and acting a lie to save the life of my beloved friend. Yes, I who had blamed Maya for this same deed. "Though it has to do with the mysteries of your religion rather than those of our order. It was the belief of Zibalbay, who is dead, that when the two halves of the ancient talisman, the halves night and morning, that together make the perfect day, are set in their place in the symbol which once they filled before the dividing of the peoples, then it shall be made clear what part must be played by each of us wanderers in the fate that is to be. To this end did Zibalbay undertake his journey, and lo, here is that which he went to seek." I drew the talisman from my breast, adding, "Take it, Tikal, for I resign it, and I lay it with its fellow in the place that is prepared for them, so that we may learn, and that all your people may learn, what truth there is in the visions of Zibalbay." "That is our desire," answered Tikal, taking the severed emerald and its counterpart, which Maya gave to him. "Let the white man, son of the sea, be placed without the sanctuary and guarded there a while, for so at least he will gain time to prepare himself for death. Fear not, lady," he added, noting Maya's anxious face, "no harm shall be done to him till this matter of the prophecy is made clear." Now, for the second time, the señor was removed. When he had gone, Tikal spoke, tracing the history of the prophecy so far as it was known, and reciting its substances, that when once more the two halves of the symbol of the heart were laid side by side in their place on the altar in the sanctuary, then from that hour the people should grow great again. "In all this," he said, "I have little faith. Still, Zibalbay, who in his way was wise, believed it, and the story having gone abroad, the people clamour that it should be put to the test. Is this your will also?" "It is our will," answered the councillors. "Good. Then let it be done, and on your heads be it, if harm should come of the deed. Mattai, the council commands you to set these fragments in the hollow of the symbol." "If such is the order of the council, I have no choice but to obey," said Mattai. Yet though none else have done so, I give my voice against it, for I hold that this is childishness, and never did I know any good to spring from prophecies." And he paused as though waiting for the answer. "Obey, obey," said the council, for curiosity had got hold of them, and they craned their necks forward to see what might happen. "Obey," repeated Tikal, "but beware how you shake the heart, lest the legend prove true and we should perish in the doom of waters." Then Mattai set the two halves of the talisman in their place, and, as before, in the midst of an utter silence, lo, the symbol opened like a flower. Leaning forward, I saw the eye within its hollow, but it seemed to me that the fire had faded from the heart of the jewel, for now it gleamed coldly, like the eye of a man who is 2 hours dead. I think that Mattai noted this also, for as the symbol opened he started, and his hand shook. Now, when they saw the marvel, a gasp of wonder rose from the council. Then Tikal spoke, saying, "It seems that there was wisdom in Zibalbay's madness, for the heart has opened indeed, and within it is a stone eye resting upon a plate of gold that is covered with writing." "Read the writing," they cried. Displacing the eye, Tikal lifted the plate of gold and scanned it. "I cannot," he said, shaking his head. "It is written in a character more ancient than any I have learned. Take it, Mattai, for you are instructed in such signs." Mattai took the tablet and studied it long with an anxious face, upon which at length light broke that chanced anon to wonder, or rather blank amaze, so that I, watching him, began to think, not knowing all the cleverness of Mattai, that the señor was right, and the tablet had been tampered with since we saw it. "Read, read," cried the council. "Brethren," he said, "the words seem clear, yet so strange in this writing that I fear my learning is at fault, and that I had best give it to others to decipher." "No, read, read," they cried again, almost angrily. Then he read: "This is the voice of the nameless god that his prophet heard in the year of the beginning of the sanctuary, and graved upon a tablet of gold, which he set in a secret place in the symbol of the sanctuary, to be declared in that far-off hour when the lost is found and the signs of the day and the night are come together. To thee it speaks, unborn daughter to a chief to be, whose name is the name of a nation. When my people have grown old and their numbers are lessened, and their heart is faint, then, maiden, take to thyself as a husband a man of the race of the white god, a son of the sea foam, who thou shalt lead hither across the desert. So my people shall once more prosper and grow strong, and the land shall be to thy child and the child of the god east and west, and north and south, further than the eagle's wing between sunrise and set." Now, as Mattai read, the face of Tikal grew black with rage, and before ever the echoes of his voice had died away, he sprang from his seat, crying: "Whoever it was that wrote this lying prophecy, god or man, let him be accused. Shall the Lady Maya, for her it must be whose name is the name of a nation, be given in marriage to the white dog who awaits his doom without that door, and shall his son rule over us? First will I see her dead, and him with her." Then one of the oldest of the council, a man named Demas, who, as I learned afterwards, had been foster brother to Zibalbay, rose and answered wrathily: "It seems that these things must be so, Tikal, and beware how you utter threats of death, lest they should fall upon your own head." We have called upon the God, and the God has spoken in no uncertain voice. The Lady Maya must become wife to the white man, son of the sea, and then things shall befall as they are fated." "What?" answered Tikal. "Is this wandering stranger to be set over me and all of us?" "That I do not know," said the councillor. "The writing does not say so. The writing says that his son shall be set over us, and as yet he has no son. But this is certain, that the Lady Maya must be given to him as wife, and in her right he well may rule, seeing that she is the lawful heir to her father, and not you, Tikal, although you have usurped her place." Now many voices called upon Maya, till she stood forward and spoke with downcast eyes. "What shall I say," she began, "except one thing, that my will is the will of gods, and if it is fated that I should be given to the white man in marriage, why, so let it be. For many years I was taught to look elsewhere, but he who was to have been my husband," and she pointed towards Tikal, "chose himself another wife, and now I see that he did this not altogether of his own will, but because it was so decreed. One thing more, I, who am but woman, have no desire to rule or to take the place that the Lady Nahua holds. The writing says that in a day to come, a far-off day, some child of mine, if indeed I am that daughter of the chief, whose name is the name of a nation, shall rule in truth. Let him then come in his hour and take the glories that await him, and meanwhile, Tikal, do you sit in your place and leave me to rest in peace." "The Lady Maya speaks you fair, Tikal, and my daughter," said Mattai, "and if the people will have it, you may do well to accept her offer, leaving the future to shape itself. She says she is ready to take the white man as a husband, but we have not yet heard whether the white man will take her as a wife. It may be," he added with a smile, "that he will rather choose to die, but at least we must have an answer from his lips, that is, if you accept this prophecy as sent from heaven. Say, do you accept it?" "We accept it," answered the council, almost with a single voice. "Then let the white man, son of the sea, be brought before us," said Mattai. End of chapter 20. World by H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 21. The Marriage of Maya. Presently the door opened, and the señor was led into the sanctuary, as he thought, to his death, for I saw that his teeth were set, and that his hand was clenched as though to defend himself. But as he came, the most of the council rose and bowed to him, saying, "Hail to you, son of the sea, favoured of heaven, father foreordained of the deliverer to come." Then he knew that the plot had succeeded, and uttered a great sigh of relief. "Hearken, white lord," said Mattai, for Tikal sat still and scowled on him in silence. "The gods have spoken by their oracle. As Zibalbay thought, so it is, and your feet have been led for a purpose to the gates of the City of the Heart. Listen to the words of the gods." And taking the tablet, he read to him the false prophecy. "Now choose, white man. Will you take the Lady Maya to wife, or will you be put to death in that, having wandered to the City of the Heart, you refuse to obey the command of its gods?" Then the Señor thought and answered, "The man would be foolish who hesitated between death and so fair and sweet a bride. Still, this is a matter that I cannot decide alone. What says the Lady Maya?" "She says," answered Maya, "that although this is a marriage for which she did not look, and it is a new thing that a daughter of the Heart should take a stranger of less ancient blood to husband, the will of Heaven is her will, and the Lord that Heaven chooses for her shall be her Lord." And she stretched out her hand to the señor. He took it, and bending down, kissed her fingers, saying, "May I be worthy of your choice, lady." Now I thought that the ceremonies were finished, and was glad, for I grew weary of assisting at this farce. But the old priest, Zibalbay's foster brother, rose and said, "One thing more must be done, brethren, before we leave this sanctuary, and it is to swear in these strangers as members of the council. They have wandered here from far, and here with us they must live and die, seeing that both of them know our secrets, and one of them is predestined to become the father of that great lord for whose arising we have looked for many generations. Therefore, until the child is born, he must be watched and guarded as priests watch a sacred fire." "Aye, it is well thought of. Let them be sworn, and learn that to break the oath is death," was the answer. Then Mattai rose as keeper of the sanctuary and said, "You, white man, son of the sea, and you, Ignatio, the wanderer, a lord of the Heart, do swear upon the holy symbol of the Heart the oath to break, which is to die horribly in this world, and to be lost everlastingly in the worlds that are to be. You swear, setting in pledge your souls and bodies for the fulfilment of the oath, that neither by word nor sign nor deed will you reveal aught of the mysteries or the counsels of this brotherhood, whereof you will be the faithful servants till your deaths, holding it supreme above every power upon earth. You swear that you will not possess yourselves of the treasures of the City of the Heart, nor, without the consent of this high brotherhood, attempt to leave its gates or to bring any strangers within its walls. These things you swear with your hands upon the altar, setting in pledge your souls and bodies for the fulfilment of the oath. Other clauses there were also which I have forgotten, but this was the substance of the vow that was dictated to us. We looked at each other helplessly, and then, there being no escape, we swore, kneeling before the altar, with our hands resting upon it. As the solemn words of confirmation passed our lips, we heard a sound of the movement of heavy stones behind us. "Arise now," said the old priest. "Turn, brethren, and look upon that which lies behind you." We obeyed, and the next instant shrank back against the altar in alarm, for within 6 feet of us a massive stone in the floor had been lifted, revealing the mouth of a well, from the deep recesses of which came the distant sound of rushing waters. "Behold, brethren," he went on, "and should the oath which you have sworn be broken in a single letter, learn after what fashion you must suffer for your sins. Into that pit you shall be cast, that the water may choke your breath, and the demons of the underworld may prey upon your souls through all eternity. Have you seen, and seeing, do you understand?" "We have seen and we understand," we answered. Then let the mouth of the pit be sealed again, and pray you in your hearts that it may never be opened to receive the living body of you or any of us. Son of the Sea, and you, Ignacio the Wanderer, the oaths have been sworn, and the ceremony is finished. Henceforth, till your deaths, you are of our number, sharers in our rights and privileges, and you will be assigned houses, attendants, and revenues fitted to your situation. Go forth, brethren, that you may refresh yourselves, and prepare to meet the people upon the summit of the pyramid at dawn, that is, within an hour. Lead them away with you, my lord Mattai." So we went, leaving behind us the talisman of the broken heart, for the priest refused to return it to me, saying that at length the tokens named Day and Night had come together in their ancient place, and henceforth there they must bide forever. Accompanied by Maya, Mattai, and the escort of priests, we passed through the halls and passages out into the courtyard of the temple, and thence to apartments in the palace, where we refreshed ourselves with food, for we were weary. The trick had succeeded, the ordeal was past, and for the present at least we were no longer in danger of our lives. More, the power of Mattai was confirmed. His daughter was assured in her position as the wife of Tikal. Also, the señor and the Lady Maya were about to attain to the fullness of their desire, and to be declared one in the presence of the people. Yet never did I partake in a sadder meal, or behold faces more oppressed by care and the fear of the future. For though nothing was said, in our hearts each of us knew that we had become parties to a crime, and that sooner or later, in this way or in that, our evil doing would find us out. Putting this matter aside, I myself had good reason to mourn, seeing that whatever the others had gained, I had won nothing. Moreover, I found myself bound by a solemn oath not even to attempt to leave this city, whether I had journeyed with such high hopes. Well, the thing was done, and it was useless to regret it or to think of the future. So, turning to Mattai, I asked him what was to happen on the pyramid. "There will be a great gathering of the people," he answered, "as is customary at dawn after the night of the rising of waters, and there will be told all that has happened in the sanctuary. Then, if it is their will, Tikal will be confirmed as /cacique according to the bargain, and either today or tomorrow the white man here will become the husband of the Lady Maya, in order," he added with a sneer, "that of their union may be born to deliver who is to be. Now, if you are ready, it is time for us to go, for the multitude is gathered, and an escort waits without." Leaving the palace, we placed ourselves in the centre of a party of nobles and guards who were in attendance, and marched across the courtyard and up the steps of the pyramid. The night was growing grey with the breaking of the dawn, and in the pearly light through which the stars shone faintly, we perceived that bands of priests and nobles, wrapped in their broidered serapes, for the morning air was chilly, stood in their appointed places round the altar. In front of them were ranged the dense masses of the people, drawn here to make their prayers upon this feast day, and also by desire to learn the truth as to the death of Zibalbay, the fate of the strangers who had accompanied him from the unknown lands, the decision of the council as to the successor to the place and power of /cacique, and lastly, whether or no the oracle of the god had spoken to his priests upon this or any other matter when the lost talisman was set in its place in the sanctuary. On reaching the altar, seats were given to us among the nobles of the heart, those of Maya and the señor being placed in such fashion that they would be visible to the whole multitude. Then followed a silence, till at length a priest, who was stationed upon the roof of the watch house, blew a silver trumpet and proclaimed that the dawn had broken, whereon bands of singers who were in readiness began to chant a very beautiful hymn, of which the refrain was caught up by the audience. As they sang, a beam from the rising sun struck upon the fire that burned above the altar, and again the trumpet sounded. Then, in the silence that followed, the priest who stood by the fire, clothed in white robes, prayed in a loud voice, saying, "O God, our God, let our sins die with the dying year. O God, our God, strengthen us with thy strength, comfort us with thy comfort during the year that is to be. O God, our God, have pity upon us, lift us from the darkness of the past, and give us light in the coming time. Hear us, Heart of Heaven, hear us." He ceased, and from the surrounding gloom many voices made a response, saying, "Hear us, Heart of Heaven, hear us." For a space the old priest stood still, the firelight flickering on his tall form and rapt countenance as he gazed toward the east. Greyer and more grey grew the gloom, till of a sudden a ray from the unrisen sun shot through the shadows like a spear and fell athwart the summit of the pyramid, paling the holy fire that seemed to shrink before it. At the coming of the sunbeam, the multitude of worshippers, men and women together, rose from the marble pavement whereon they had been kneeling in prayer. Casting off the dark cloaks which covered their white robes, they turned, extending their arms toward the east, and cried in one accord, "Hail to thee, O Sun, bringer of all good things! Hail to thee, new-born child of God!" Now the light grew fast, and soon the city appeared, rising white and beautiful from its veil of mist. And as the glory of the daylight fell upon it, other priests who stood by the altar uttered prayers appointed to be offered upon the day of the beginning of the rising of waters. To the people of the heart the occasion was a great one, seeing that but little rain falls in their country. Thus they depended for a bountiful harvest upon the inundation of the island and of the low shores that lay around the lake, by its waters swollen with the melted snow of the great mountains on the mainland. When the waters retreated, then they planted their grain in rich land made fertile by the mud, without labour to themselves, whence before the lake rose again they gathered their corn and other crops. After they had ended their praying, and gifts of fresh flowers had been laid upon the altar by beautiful children chosen for that purpose, Tikal blessed the multitude as high priest, and the simple ceremony came to an end. Then Mattai rose to speak, telling the people all the things that had happened, or so much of them as it was expedient that they should know. He told them of the death of Zibalbay, of the setting of the last talisman, the symbol, and of the writing that was found therein, which he read aloud to them amidst a dead silence. Then he told them how the Lady Maya and the white man had consented to be married in obedience to the voice of the oracle, and lastly how she, the Lady Maya, had desired that her cousin Tikal should continue to be /cacique/ of the City of the Heart, that she might have more leisure to attend upon her heaven-sent husband, and to be at rest until that child was become a man, whose wisdom and power should make them even greater than their forefathers had been. When he had finished his address, there was much applause with other expressions of joy, and a spokesman from among the people asked when the marriage of the white man, son of the sea, to the Lady Maya would take place. This question she answered in person, saying modestly that her lord's will was that it should take place that very night in the banqueting hall of the palace, and that a great feast should be celebrated in honour of the event. After this the talking came to an end, Tikal having said no word, good or bad, beyond such as the duties of his office required, and according to the custom of the country, many people, noble and simple, came forward to congratulate her who was about to be made a bride. Weary of watching them and of hearing their pretty speeches, I took advantage of the escort of a friendly noble and went to see the ceremony of the closing of the floodgate, a huge block of marble that slid down a groove into a niche prepared to receive it, where it was fastened with great bars of copper and sealed by certain officers. Although, so I was told, the rising water would not reach it for another 8 or 10 days. Even though the flood should prove to be a low one, it was death to break those seals for a space of 4 full months, and during all this time any who would leave the city must do so by means of ladders reaching from the wall to little wooden jetties where boats were moored. Afterwards we walked round the walls and through some of the main streets, and I marvelled at the greatness of this half-deserted place, for the most of it was in ruins, and at the many strange sights that I saw there. Indeed, I think that Mexico in the time of Montezuma, my forefather, was not more powerful or populous than this town must have been in the days of its prosperity. About midday I returned to the apartments that had been assigned to me in the palace, and hearing that the señora was still in attendance upon Lady Maya, I ate my dinner alone with such appetite as I could find, and lay down to sleep a while. I was awakened from my rest by the señor, who arrived looking as merry as he used to before ever Molas came to lead us to the old Indian doctor and his daughter, and full of talk about the preparations for his wedding that night. I listened to all he had to say and strove earnestly to fall into his mood, but, as I suppose, without effect, for in the end he fell into mine, which was but a sad one, and began to talk regretfully of the past and doubtfully of the future. Now I did my best to cheer him, but with little avail, for he shook his head and said: "Indian as she is, I love Maya, and no other woman has been or can be so much to me. Yet I am afraid, Ignatio, for this marriage is ill omened, and I pray that what was begun in trickery may not end in desolation. Also the future is black both for you and for me. You came here for a certain purpose, and will desire to leave again to follow your purpose. Nor, although I take the lady to wife, do I wish to spend my days in the City of the Heart. Still, it would seem that, unless we can escape, this is what we must do." "Let us hope that we shall be able to escape," I answered. "I doubt it," he said, "for already I have discovered that, though we be treated with all honour, yet we shall be closely watched, or at least I shall, for certain reasons. Still, come what may, I trust that this marriage will make no breach in our friendship, Ignatio." "I do not know, señor," I answered, "though I think that for weeks its shadow has lain between us, and I fear lest that shadow should deepen. Also it has been fated that women and their loves should come between me, my ambitions, and my friends. From the moment that my eyes fell upon the Lady Maya, Bound to the altar in the chapel of the hacienda, I felt that her great beauty would bring trouble upon us, and it would seem that my heart did not lie to me. Now, under her guidance, we have entered upon a dark and doubtful path, whereof no man can see the end." "Yes," he answered, "but we took that path in order to save our lives." "She took it not to save her life, on which I think she sets little store, but to win a husband whom she desires. For my part, I hold that it would have been better for us to die, if God so willed it, than to live on with hearts fouled by deceit, seeing that in the end die we must, but no years of added life can wear away that stain. Well, this must seem sad to talk to the ears of a bridegroom. Forget it, friend, and rest awhile that you may do credit to the marriage feast." Without answering, the señor lay down upon the bed, where he remained, whether sleeping or awake I do not know, till the hour of sunset, when he was aroused by the arrival of several lords and attendants who came to lead him to the bath. On his return, other messengers entered, bearing magnificent robes and jewels, the gift of the Lady Maya, to be worn by him and by me at the ceremony. Then barbers, having trimmed and scented his fair hair and beard according to the fashions of this people, he was decked out like a victim for the sacrifice. So soon as all was prepared, the doors were flung wide, and 6 officers of the palace came through them, bearing wands of office in their hands, accompanied by a troop of singing girls, chosen for their loveliness, which, to speak truth, was not small. In the midst of these officers and ladies the señor was placed, and, followed by myself, who walked behind with a heavy heart, he set out for the banqueting hall. As we reached it, the doors were thrown open, and the singers set up a love song pretty enough, but so foolish that I have forgotten it. We passed the threshold, and found that the great hall was crowded with guests, arrayed in their most brilliant attire, whereon the lamplight shone bravely. Through this company we walked till we reached an open space at the far end of the hall, around which, in a semicircle, sat the members of the Council of the Heart, Tikal and his wife being placed in the centre of them, having Mattai on their right, and on their left the old priest Dimas, the foster brother of Zibalbay, who had administered the oath to us. As we advanced, with one exception, all the council rose and bowed to the señor. That exception was Tikal, who stood straight before him and did not move. Scarcely had they resumed their seats when the sound of singing was heard again, mingled with that of music, and far away at the foot of the long hall appeared a band of musicians playing upon pipes of reeds, clad in the royal livery of green and crowned with oak leaves. After the musicians marched, or rather danced, a number of young girls, robed in white only, and carrying white lilies in their hands, which they threw upon the floor to be trodden by the feet of the bride. Next came Maya herself, a sight of beauty such as stirred even my cold heart, and caused me to think more gently of the señor, who had become party to a trick to win her. She also was arrayed in white, embroidered with gold, and having the symbol of the heart blazoned on her breast. About her waist and neck were a girdle and collar of priceless emeralds. On her head was set a tiara of perfect pearls, taken in past ages from the shellfish of the lake, and round her wrists and ankles were bangles of dead gold. Her waving hair hung loose almost to her sandalled feet, and in her hand, as token of her rank, she bore a little golden sceptre, having at one end a great pearl and at the other a heart-shaped emerald. On she came, or rather floated, her delicate head held high, and so strange and beautiful was the aspect of her face, that for my part, from the instant that I beheld it, till she stood before me by the bridegroom, I seemed to see naught else. It was very pale and somewhat set. Indeed, at that moment Maya looked more like a white woman than one of Indian blood, and her curved lips were parted as though they waited for some forgotten words to pass them. Her deep blue eyes also were set wide, and beneath the shadow of their lashes seemed full of mystery and wonder, like the eyes of one who walks in her sleep and beholds things invisible to the waking sight. Presently they fell upon the eyes of the señor, and of a sudden grew human, while the red blood mantled on her breast and arms and brow. Then for me the spell was broken. I glanced at Tikal and saw that on his face was the same look with which he had greeted Maya when on the night of his own wedding feast he beheld her whom he believed to be dead, standing before him, clothed in life and beauty. Eagerly despairing he watched her, and I noticed that tears stood in his angry eyes, and that a gust of jealous rage shook him from head to foot when he saw her flush with joy at the sight of the white rival. From Tikal my glance travelled to the dark beauty at his side, Nahua, his wife, and I became aware that in this instant she grew certain of what perhaps before she only guessed, that in his heart her husband loathed her as with all his soul and strength he loved the affianced of his youth, who stood before him the bride of another man. Doubt, fear, rage looked out and turned from her ominous eyes as the knowledge went home, to be succeeded by a possessing misery, the misery of one who knows that all which makes life good to her is for ever lost. Then, pressing her hands to her heart for a moment, she turned aside to hide her shame and wretchedness, and when she looked up again her face was calm as the face of a statue, but on it was frozen a mask of unchanging hate, hate of the innocent woman who had robbed her. Now the bridegroom and the bride stood together in the open space, surrounded by the half circle of the Council of the Heart, among whom I was given a seat, while behind them were arranged the musicians of singing girls, and behind these again pressed the glittering audience of married guests. When all were in their places, a herald rose and cried out the names and titles of the pair, reciting briefly that they were to be wed by the direct command of the guardian god of the city, by the wish of the Council of the Heart, and because of the love that they bore one another. Next, reading from a written roll, he published the text of the agreement whereby Maya renounced her right as ruler in favour of her cousin Tikal, and I noticed that this agreement was received by the company in cold silence, and with some few expressions of disapproval. Lastly, from another roll, he read the list of the honours, prerogatives, offices, wealth, houses, and servants, which were thereby assigned to the Lady Maya and her consort, and also to myself, their friend, for the maintenance of their rank and dignity, and of my comfort. Having finished this task, he asked the señor and Maya whether they had heard all that he had uttered by command of the Council, and if so, whether they approved thereof. They bowed their heads in assent, whereupon the herald turned and, addressing Tikal by all his titles, called upon him in virtue of his priestly office and of his position as chief of the state to make these two one in the face of the people, according to the ancient custom of the land. Tikal heard him and rose from his seat as though to commence the service, then sank down again, saying, "Seek some other priest, herald." for this thing I will not do. End of chapter 21. By H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 22. Mattai prophesies evil. At Tikal's words, the company murmured in astonishment, and Mattai, bending forward, began to whisper in his ear. Tikal listened for a moment, then turned upon him fiercely and said aloud, so that all could hear him, "I tell you, Mattai, that I will be no party to this iniquity. Has such a thing been heard of before, that the lady of the heart, the highest lady in the land, should be given in marriage to a stranger who, like some lost dog, has wandered to our gate?" "The prophecy," began Mattai, "the prophecy! I put no faith in prophecies. Why should I obey a prophecy written now? When or by whom, I do not know. This lady was my affianced bride, and now I am asked to unite her to a nameless man who is not even of our blood or faith. Well, I will not." "Surely, Lord, you blaspheme," answered Mattai, growing wrath, "seeing that it is not for the high priest to speak against the oracle of the god. Also," he added with meaning, "what can it be to you, who are not 10 days wed to the lady at your side, that she, to whom once you were affianced, should choose another as her husband?" "What is it to me?" said Tikal furiously. "If you desire to know, I will tell you. It is everything. How did I come to break my troth, and to take your daughter as a wife? Through you, Mattai, through you, the liar and false prophet. Did you not swear to me that Maya was dead yonder in the wilderness? And did you not, to satisfy your own ambitions, force me to take your daughter to wife? Aye, and is not this marriage between the lady of the heart and the white man a plot of yours devised for the furthering of your ends?" Now, while we all stood astonished, of a sudden Nahua, who hitherto had listened in stony silence, rose and said, "The Lord Tikal, my husband, forgets that common courtesy should protect even an unwelcome wife from public insult." Then she turned and left the hall by the door which was behind her. A murmur of pity for the lady and indignation at the man ran through the company. As it died away, Tikal said, "Evil will come of this night's work, and in it I will have no hand. Do what you will, and abide the issue." And before any could speak in answer, he also had left the hall, followed by his guards. For a while there was silence. Then men began to talk confusedly, and some of the members of the Brotherhood of the Heart, rising from their chairs, took hurried counsel together. At length they reseated themselves, and, holding up his hand to secure silence, Mattai spoke thus: "Forgive me," he said, addressing the audience, "if my words seem few and rough, but it is hard for me to be calm in face of the open insult which has been put upon my daughter and myself before you all. I will not stoop to answer the charges that the Lord Tikal has brought against me in his rage. Surely some evil power must have afflicted him with madness, that, forgetting his honour as a man and his duty as a prince and priest, he should dare to utter such calumnies against the god we worship, the white man whom the god has chosen to be husband to the Lady Maya, and myself, the keeper of the sanctuary. There were many among you who held me foolish when, after much prayer and thought to further what I believed to be the true interests of the whole people, I gave my voice in favour of the lifting up of Tikal to fill the place in honour of /cacique in room of our late Prince Balbe, whom we thought dead with his daughter in the wilderness. Today I see that they were right, and that I was foolish indeed. But enough of regrets and bitter talk that make ill music at a marriage feast. Tikal, the head of our hierarchy, has gone, but other priests are left, nor is his will the will of the council or of the people of the heart for whom the council speaks. Their will is that this marriage should go forward, and Dimas, my brother, as the oldest among us, I call upon you to celebrate it." Now the company shouted in applause, for they were set upon this strange union of a white man with their lady, if only because it was a new thing and touched their imagination. Also, even those of them who were of his party were wrath with Tikal on account of his ill behaviour and the cruel affront that he had offered to his new-made wife. So soon as the tumult had died away, the old priest Dimas rose, and taking the hands of Maya and the señor, he joined them and said a very touching and beautiful prayer over them, blessing them and entreating the spirit, heart of heaven, and other gods to give them increase and to make them happy in mutual love. Lastly, he laid a white silken cloth which had been prepared upon their heads as they knelt before him, and, loosening the emerald girdle from about the waist of the bride, he took her right hand and placed it upon the arm of the señor. Then he bound the girdle round the waist and arm, buckled it, and in a few solemn words declared these twain to be man and wife in the face of heaven and earth, till death undid them. Now the cloth was lifted and the girdle loosed, and standing upon their feet, the new wed pair kissed each other before the people. A shout of joy went up that shook the panelled roof, and one by one, in order of their rank, the guests pressed forward to wish happiness to the bride and bridegroom, most of them bringing some costly and beautiful gift, which they gave into the charge of the waiting ladies. Last of all came the old priest Dimas, and said, "Sweet bride, the gift that I am commanded by the council to make to you, though of little value in itself, is yet one of the most precious to be found within the walls of this ancient city, being nothing less than the holy symbol of the all-seeing eye of the heart of heaven, which through you men behold today for the first time for many generations. Wear it always, lady, and remember that though this jewel has no sight, yet that eye whereof it is a token, from hour to hour reads your most secret soul and purpose. Make your thoughts then as fair as your body, and let your breast harbour neither guile nor evil, for of all these things in a day to come you must surely give account." As he spoke, he drew from the case that hid it nothing less than that awful eye which we had seen within the hollow of the heart, when with unhallowed hands we robbed it, substituting the false for the true. Now it had been set in a band of gold, and hung to a golden chain, which he placed about the neck of the bride, so that the red and cruel-looking gem lay gleaming on her naked breast. Maya bowed and muttered some word of thanks, but I saw that her spirit failed her at the touch of the ominous thing, for she turned faint and would have fallen had not her husband caught her by the arm. While the señor and his wife were receiving gifts and listening to pretty speeches, a number of attendants had brought tables laden with every sort of food from behind the pillars where they had been prepared, and at a signal the feast began. It was long and joyous, though joy seemed to have faded from the face of Maya, who sat neither eating nor drinking, but from time to time lifting the red eye from her breast as though it scorched her skin. At length she rose, and, accompanied by her husband, walked bowing down the hall to the courtyard, where bearers waited for them with carrying chairs. In these they seated themselves, and a procession having been formed, very long and splendid, though I will not stay to describe it, we started to march round the great square to the sound of music and singing, our path being lit by the light of the moon and with hundreds of torches. Here in this square we gathered all the population of the City of the Heart, men, women, and children, to greet the bride, each of them bearing flowers and a flaming torch, and never have I seen any sight more beautiful than this of their welcome. The circuit of the square being accomplished, the procession halted at the palace gates, and many hands were stretched out to help the bride and bridegroom from their litters. It was at this moment that I, who was standing near, felt a man wrapped in a large feather cloak push past me, and saw that he held something which gleamed like a knife. By instinct, as it were, I cried, "Beware, my friend," in Spanish, and in so piercing a voice that it caught the señor's ear. He swung round, for already he was standing on his feet, and as he turned, the man in the cloak rushed at him and stabbed with the knife. But being warned, the señor was too quick for him. Springing to one side with the same movement, he dealt his would-be murderer a great buffet that caused him to drop the dagger and sent him staggering to the dense shadow of the archway. For some seconds no one seemed to understand what had happened. When they did and began to search for the man, he was not found. Who he was, or why he had attempted this cowardly deed, was never discovered. But for my part, I had little doubt that either Tikal himself or some creature of his was wrapped in the dark feathered cloak, and sought thus to rid him of his rival. Indeed, as time went on, this belief took firm hold of the mind of the people, and was one of the causes that led to the snapping of Tikal's power and popularity. Very hastily the señor assured the lords in attendance who crowded round him that he had received no manner of hurt. Then, after speaking a few brief words of thanks, he withdrew into the palace with his wife, and I saw him no more that night. The day of this marriage was to me the beginning of the longest and most weary year that ever I had spent in long, weary life. Very soon I understood how it came about that Maya had learned to hate the City of the Heart in which she was born, its people and its ways, and ardently to desire a new life in new lands. Here there was no change and little work. Here, enervated by a cloying luxury, the poor remnant of a great civilization rotted slowly to its fall, and none lifted a hand to save it. Since men must do something, the priests and nobles plotted for place and power indeed, and the common people listlessly followed this trade or that, providing food and raiment for the community, not for themselves. But there was little heart in what they did, and in it they took no pleasure. Basking in an eternal sunshine, they loitered from the cradle to the grave, hoping nothing, suffering nothing, fearing nothing, content to feast and make love amid their crumbling palaces, and, when they were weary, to sleep till it was time to feast and love again, satisfying their souls the while with the husks of a faith whereof they had lost the meaning. Such were the people of whom Zibalbay hoped to fashion a race of conquerors. Still, to this life they were born, and it became them. Indeed, they could have endured no other, for the breath of hardship must have melted them away as my Indian forefathers melted beneath the iron rule of the Spaniard. To me it was daily torment. Often I have beheld some wild creature pine and die in its prison, though food was given to it in greater abundance than it could find in its native woods, and like that wild creature was I in this soft city of the heart. The wealth I came to seek was round me in abundance, useless and unproductive as the dead hands that had stored it, and yonder in Mexico were men who, by aid of that wealth, might become free and great. Alas, I could not bring them together. I could not even escape from my gaol, for my every movement was watched. Yet I would have tried so to do had it not been for the señor who, when I spoke of it, said I should be no true friend if I went and left him alone in this house of strangers. Indeed, his plight was worse than mine, for he too soon grew utterly weary of this dreadful city of eternal summer, and of everything in it except his wife. For whole hours we would sit gazing on the wide waters of the lake, and make plan after plan whereby we might gain the mountains and freedom, only to abandon each in turn, for they were hopeless. Day and night he was watched, since here alone this people forgot to be indolent. They knew that their race was dying, and, lifting no hand to save themselves, they preferred to pin their faith upon the prophecy which promised that from this white man should spring a saviour. Meanwhile, false though it may have been, the prophecy, or one part of it, was in the way of fulfilment, which in itself was a wonder to this people, among whom the births of children were so rare. At length that child was born, a son, and the rejoicing knew no bounds. Strangely enough, upon the same day, Naua also gave birth to a son, and great was her anger when she learned that it was not on her account or that of her offspring that the people were so glad. Within a few days of the señor's marriage we heard that Mattai had been seized with sickness, a kind of palsy, together with a leprous condition of the arms that baffled all skill. For months he lay in his house, growing gradually worse, so said the physicians. One night I remember that it was 3 days previous to the birth of Maya's child. He appeared before Maya, the señor, and myself as we sat together in the palace, looking out upon the moonlit garden. At first we did not know him, for never before had I seen a sight so dreadful. His body was bloated, one arm, his left, was swathed in bandages, his head shook incessantly, and the leprosy had seized his face, which was of a livid hue. "Do not shrink from me," he began in a low and quavering voice, as he gazed upon us with his whitening eyes. "Surely you should not shrink, seeing that all of you are partners in the crime that has made of me the loathsome thing I am. Ay, deny it if you will, but I know it. The vengeance of the god has fallen upon me, his false servant, and it has fallen justly. Moreover, be assured that on you also shall that vengeance fall, for the eye has seen, the mouth has told, and the heart has thought upon your doom. Look upon me, and learn how rich are the wages of him who works iniquity, and by my suffering strive to count the measure of your own. Perchance your cup is not yet full, perchance you have still greater sins to work, but vengeance shall come. I tell you that vengeance shall come here and hereafter. I did this thing for my daughter's sake, yes, for love of her, my only child. She was ambitious, and she desired this man, and I thought to assure greatness to her and to her children after her. But see, how her wine has turned to vinegar, and her pleasant fruit to ashes. Her husband hates her with an ever-growing hate. Now they scarcely speak, only to shower bitter words upon each other's head. More, not for long will Tikal be cacique of this city of the heart, for his jealous rage has soured all his mind. His deeds are deeds of oppression and injustice. Already he is detested by the people, and even those who loved him turn from him and plot against him. Do you know what they plot? They plot to make that child that shall be born to you, Maya, cacique in his room, and to set up you and your outland husband as regents till it shall be of an age to govern. Oh, you have planned cunningly, and things look well for you, but I say that they shall not prosper. The curse is on you, Ignacio, Lord of the Heart, for all your high-built hopes shall fall like rotted roof, and never shall the eagles of that empire you have dreamed be bordered on your banners. Slaves are the people you have toiled for, and slaves they shall remain, for by the crime to which you gave consent, Ignacio, you have riveted their fetters. The curse is on your child, Maya. Never shall it live to become a man. The curse is on your husband. His hair shall not grow grey. But heaviest of all, the curse rests upon you, false lady of the heart, you whose life is one long lie, you who forsook your faith and broke your oath, you who turned from your people and from the law of your high and ancient house, that you might win a wandering white man to your arms. Woman, we shall meet no more, but in the hour of your last misery, and in the long, long ages of the eternal punishment, remember the words that I speak to you today." Then, shaking his withered arm in our faces, Mattai turned and limped from the chamber. He went, and we sat gazing at each other in horror, for though we none of us had any faith in the god he worshipped, in our hearts we felt that this man spoke truth, and that evil would overtake us. For a moment Maya hid her face in her hands and wept. Then she sprang up. A fire in her eyes had dried her tears. "So let it be," she cried. "I care nothing. At least I won you, my love, and for some months, through all our troubles, I have been most happy at your side, and come good, come ill, nothing can rob me of my memories. But for you I fear, husband. Husband, I fear for you." Then her passion passed. She flung herself into his arms and again began to weep. In due course the child was born, a beautiful boy, almost white in colour, with his mother's star-like eyes, and on the same night we learned that Mattai had died in much torment, and that Nahua was delivered of a son. 18 days went by, and Maya, new risen from her bed, was seated with her husband and myself, while behind us stood a waiting lady holding the sleeping infant in her arms, when it was announced to us that an embassy of great lords of the council sought speech with her. Presently they entered, and the spokesman, the Lord Dimas, bowed before her and set out his mission, saying: "We have come to you, Lady of the Heart, on behalf of the Council and of the people, to rejoice with you in your great happiness, and to lay certain matters of the state before you. For some months the people have grown weary of the oppression and cruelties of Tikal, who, in defiance of the laws of the land, has put many to death on suspicion of their being concerned in plots against his power. Further, but yesterday it came to the ears of the council, through the confession of one whom he had employed to execute his wickedness, that a plan was laid to murder your husband, your child, and the Lord Ignacio here." "Indeed," said Maya. "And why was my name omitted from this list?" "Lady, we do not know," he answered, "but it seems that the assassins had orders to take you living and to hide you away in a secret part of Tikal's house." Now the señor sprang to his feet and swore a great oath to be avenged upon Tikal. "Nay, lord," said Dimas, "his person is holy and must not be touched, nor need you have any further fear of him, for those whom he corrupted await their trial, and he himself is watched by day and night. Also, not for long will Tikal remain /cacique/ of the City of the Heart, for the council have met in secret session to which you were not summoned, and have decreed that he shall be deposed because of his iniquities, and in accordance with the desire of the people." "Can a /cacique/ be deposed?" asked Maya. "Yes, lady, if he has broken the law, for was not your father to be deposed for this same reason? Also, Tikal holds his place not by right of birth, but by treaty. You are the true heir to Zibalbay, Lady of the Heart." "It may be so," she answered coldly, "but I have renounced my claim, and I do not desire to go back upon my word." "If you have renounced it," said Dimas, "there is one to whom it passes," and he pointed to the sleeping infant. "Yonder is the child of prophecy, hope of the people, and he it is whom we propose to crown as our ruler, setting you and your husband up to act for him till he reaches his full age." "Nay," said Maya, "for thus shall he become the mark of Tikal's rage, and be put to death, openly or in secret, as it may chance." "Not so, lady, for in that hour when he is proclaimed, Tikal will be taken into safe keeping, where he shall abide for so long as his life lasts." "And when is this to be?" asked the señor. "Tomorrow at noon, upon the pyramid, that the child may be solemnly anointed 3 days hence in the sanctuary on the night of the rising waters." "It is foolish to crown a babe, and neither I nor my husband seek this greatness," said Maya. "If Tikal is to be deposed because of his crimes, let one of the great lords be set in his place until the child is old enough to rule." "Although you and your husband are to command us in the future," answered Dimas sternly, "till then you must obey, lady, for the voice of the council is supreme, and it carries out the will of its founder, an invisible president, the Heart of Heaven. The council has determined that the heaven-sent child, of whom you are the earthly parents, must take his own." "As you will," said Maya with a sigh, and presently they went. That evening the señor and I attended a feast at the house of one of the great nobles, whence we returned somewhat late. Having dismissed those who had escorted us, I walked with him as far as the door of his private chambers, proposing to leave him there, but he bade me enter, for he wished to talk with me about the events of the day and this forthcoming ceremony of the anointing of the child. Accordingly I did so, and passing through the first chamber, we came to the second, beyond which lay his sleeping rooms. Here we halted by the open window, and I approached a lamp, for I wished to smoke and had no light. As I bent over it, something caught my ear, and I listened, since it seemed to me that through the massive doors of the bedchamber I heard the sound of a woman's voice crying for help. Instantly I flung them open and rushed thither by way of an ante room, calling to the señor as I went. I did not arrive too soon, for in the bedchamber itself a strange sight met my eyes. At the foot of the bed stood a cradle in which lay the child, and near to it two women struggled. One of these, in which I knew Nahua, the wife of Tikal, held a copper knife in her hand, and the other, Maya, gripped her round the body and arms from behind, so that, strive as she would, she could not free herself to use it. Still, of the two women, Nahua was the heavier and the more strong, and though slowly she dragged the other closer to the cradle. Indeed, as I reached the room, she wrenched her right arm loose and raised it to strike at the infant with the knife. Here the matter ended, for at that moment I caught her round the waist and threw her back so that she fell heavily on the floor, letting drop the knife in her effort to save herself. She sprang to her feet and ran towards the door, there to be met by the señor, who seized her and held her fast. End of chapter 22.